The most awaited character in the game is finally here, Hoshimi Miyabi, which means that the storm is approaching. Setting the ground for Void Hunter, she brings some unique features that completely rewrites how you see Anomaly units in the game. Mainly the fact that you actually don't want to build Anomaly stats on her. But which units do you need to get the maximum potential, and how do you get the most of her kit? After a lot of tests and calculations, in this video we're going through everything you need to know about the very first playable Void Hunter and Frost unit of the game. Timestamps are in the video, so feel free to jump around, but I highly recommend watching everything so you can understand how she works and get some useful tips along the way. Before we begin, I just want to remind you that all the calculations and footage comes from the test server, so these numbers are not final and could change on her official release. Miyabi is a Frost Anomaly unit from Section 6, and despite the name, it isn't exactly a new attribute to the game. You could say that Frost is a subtype of Ice, meaning that it scales with Ice stats, but it has its own Anomaly gauge. This means that you can even trigger Disorder by using Ice on top of Frost. And this is quite important, because even though she's not building Anomaly stats, she still needs to play around her Anomaly. But anyway, most of your damage is coming from direct damage sources, thanks to all her kit and high damage multipliers. Now let's go over her kit. Miyabi's basic attack is really good and is one of your main tools to keep building Frost and also deal some damage. The first two hits deal physical damage, but this isn't a problem because they are super fast, and once you start to loop your basic attack string, you start from the second hit instead of the first one. All the animations are super smooth, and while the last hit animation is quite long, you block damage while doing it, so it's not as vulnerable as it seems. The energy gain is also interesting because it allows you to build and use energy on your EX specials, which offers a lot of build up and also a lot of damage. There's also an enhanced basic attack, Shimotsuki, where you consume Fallen Frost charges to use it and deal massive frost damage to enemies. It requires at least 2 charges, and every 2 charges it consumes, it increases the level of your attack. As you can see, a fully charged Shimotsuki deal more than double the damage of a level 2, meaning that it's better for you to save your charges and cast a fully charged one. Not to mention that this multiplier value is actually so insane that it's even higher than some other units' ultimates. You're invulnerable while charging and also while doing the level 3 animation. Since you're invulnerable, you can swap to another unit during the animation and benefit from both Miyabi and another unit's damage. You start a combat with 3 Fallen Frost charges, and you generate Fallen Frost charges with her EX special, ultimate, core skill, and additional ability. I'm going to talk about them later, so let's focus on the rest of her kit. While her dash attack is really bad, her dodge counter is really good. It deals good damage, great build up, and also a huge basic attack skip. After finishing your dodge counter, you follow up your basic attack 4, so it's super fast to get to basic attack 5. Highly recommend to use it whenever possible, since all the iframes and the skips it provides will help you stay safe and speed up your Frostburn triggers. Just like her dodge counter, quick assists also give you a basic attack skip all the way to basic attack 4, so it's quite good to trigger these on Miyabi. Defensive assist and its follow-up has some high damage and daze multipliers, but to compensate, it won't give any basic attack skip. It also builds a quite good amount of anomaly on the enemy, so in case you need some extra decibels, build up, or even damage instead of daze for a stunner, Miyabi has a solid defensive assist. Her special attack is really basic and not worth talking about. Just focus on her EX special. It costs 40 energy to deal massive amounts of frost damage, and you get 2 Fallen Frost charges when using it. It covers a quite good area, and you can use another 40 energy to use a follow-up. This follow-up deals even more damage than the first cast, so it's highly recommended to save 80 energy before using her EX special. The follow-up also gives 2 Fallen Frost charges, meaning that a full cast will give a total of 4 charges. As for her chain attack, it gives some decent amount of damage and a huge build-up in a good area. And while the long animation might feel like a downside, with the change on how decibels work, skipping chain attacks could be really bad for your ultimate casts. Speaking of it, her ultimate is a huge burst of damage and build-up. If Bernie surprised everyone with a 4000 damage multiplier ultimate, imagine when you discover that Miyabi can get close to 5000 damage multiplier on her ultimate. Pair that with all the crit stats you'll be beating on her, and you can imagine how much damage it can deal to the enemies. It also gives 3 Fallen Frost charges and 30% ice damage for 12 seconds. But since the ultimate animation takes 3.5 seconds, it means you only get around 8 seconds of ice damage, which is still more than enough for a huge burst of damage using all the charges you accumulated. As you can see, Miyabi's kit is really straightforward, but of course it's time to talk about her core, and if you want to maximize your damage, you need to understand and play around it. Whenever you deal frost damage to an enemy, you apply ice fire to them. When you build Frost Anomaly on targets with Ice Fire, Miyabi's build-up is increased based on 100% of her crit rate stat, and you can get up to 80% bonus build-up. This basically means that you need to aim for at least 80% crit rate in order to maximize your build-up bonus. Just like the Ice Anomaly, once you fill the Frost Anomaly gauge, you trigger Freeze, Shatter, and Frostbite. However, it is a completely independent gauge that can interact even with Ice Anomaly to trigger Disorder. When Miyabi triggers Frostbite to enemies with Ice Fire, it consumes the Ice Fire to trigger Frostburn Break, dealing frost damage based on Miyabi's attack. Doing this, also apply Frostburn to the enemy, which increases all of your squad anomaly build-up on them, but Miyabi cannot apply Ice Fire to enemies with Frostburn. Frostburn lasts until Frostbite expires, or you apply another anomaly to the enemy. This includes applying another Frost Anomaly, but since you're not triggering Frostburn Break, it's not worth it, and you should try to disorder it using another anomaly. Every 10 seconds, you can also get 1 Fallen Frost charge when applying Frostburn to the enemies. As you can see, the Frostburn states both a blessing and a curse for Miyabi. It increases everyone's anomaly build-up, including her own build-up, but since you cannot reapply Ice Fire, you won't benefit from the 80% build-up it gives, and also you won't get to trigger another Frostburn Break. This is one of the reasons why it's so important to pair Miyabi with another units that can benefit from the build-up and also trigger Disorder for her. Frostburn Break is a frost damage instance that scales with your attack, and as you can see on your screen, it can deal critical damage. And just to remind you, Frostbite increases the critical damage taken by enemies, so Frostburn Break will benefit from this increased damage. Another reason why it's so important to trigger Disorders on the enemy is because of her additional ability, which triggers when you have either a faction member or a support unit on your squad. It increases the damage of your enhanced basic attack by 60%, and whenever any squad members trigger Disorder, you get 2 Fallen Frost charges, and your next Shimotsuki will ignore 30% of the enemy ice resistance. Since it says any squad members, it means that Miyabi can also get charges by overriding other units' anomalies. It also means that the Yanagi can generate charges for Miyabi when triggering Polarity Disorder. Now that you understand her kit, let's try to break it down to the main points. Miyabi's kit is really straightforward, and all of her high damage multipliers allow you to deal good damage by building her a lot of attack and crit stats. Both her enhanced basic attack and Frostburn Break won't snapshot your stats, meaning that any change to your stats will get reflected to your final damage. Your main source of damage is her enhanced basic attack, Shimotsuki, meaning that activating her additional ability is really important for you. Luckily, since we have a total of 3 A-rank support units, it's really easy for you to do it. However, to maximize your damage, you need to play around her core skill, and this usually means playing around Disorder. That's because her core skill, while really strong, also limits your damage potential. This means that when it comes to team flexibility, Miyabi still needs some minor adjustments since you want to get enough build-up of a second attribute. Finally, being a crit-based unit on the Anomaly class means that you don't have a lot of options when it comes to engines, and you soon see how huge the difference can be between her signature and other engines. As for gameplay, depending on your team composition and preference, things can change quite a lot, but mainly you want to use your buffs as soon as possible and apply Frostburn on the enemy before swapping to other units. That's because once you trigger Frostburn, you will increase other units build up by up to 20%, and this means it's easier for them to build another anomaly and trigger disorder for you. Remember to always swap after starting your level 3 Shimotsuki animation to benefit from 2 units on the field dealing damage to the enemy. If you swap earlier, then you're going to cast it at a lower level, and this is really bad for you. When the enemy is stunned, you can chain attack and use your ultimate, and in most cases, this is more than enough to trigger a Frostburn on the enemy. If they are not dead yet, then remember that her ultimate also gives 30% ice damage bonus, meaning that you can spend some extra energy and finish with another fully charged enhanced basic attack. For skill upgrade priority, your core skill is your top priority because it increases the damage of Frostburn Break and the bonus build up for your squad as well. Then level up her basic attack because you'll be using it quite a lot, followed by her ultimate, which are the 2 main sources of damage on Miyabi. After that, focus on her EX special, assists, and lastly dodges. All of her skill deal good damage, and this means that leveling up all of them is highly recommended. Now let's talk about the options for her build. Branch and Blade Song 4-piece is the best set you can slot on Miyabi. Being an anomaly unit means she has enough anomaly mastery to trigger the 4-piece effect without using an anomaly mastery disc. It gives a total of 12% crit rate and 46% crit damage. As for the last 2-piece effect, there's plenty of other options. If you're struggling with crit rate, then Woodpecker Electro 2-piece will be your best pick. But if you are on more than enough crit rate, then Hormone Punk, Polar Metal, or even Perfect Electro works really well on Miyabi. In case you're struggling with good Branch and Blade Song pieces, you can also use Woodpecker Electro 4-piece on Miyabi, but it's definitely suboptimal, and Branch and Blade Song is the one you should aim for. As for disc stats, disc 4 is usually going to be crit rate. Of course, if you happen to get a lot of crit rate on your sub-rolls, then feel free to run crit damage or even attack. Anomaly proficiency is far from optimal, so don't even think about it. Disc 5 is ice damage, attack, or penetration in this order of priority. Unless you're running a lot of damage sources on your team, such as Lighter for example, ice damage offers the highest DPS potential between all these options. Finally, for Disc 6, the best option is attack, since Miyabi scales really well with it. Anomaly Mastery isn't recommended, but can find some user cases on some specific things and scenarios that we're going to talk about it later. That's mostly because Shatter and Disorder only makes around 12% off your damage, and her core skill is already increasing build up quite a lot. Energy regeneration isn't recommended since Miyabi's main source of energy is her basic attack. As for substats, your top priority is crit rate, at least until you get up to 80% crit rate. You can go all the way to 100%, this is personal preference, but you need at least 80% to fully benefit from her core skill. After that, your top priority is getting attack and crit damage. After that, the best one is going to be Anomaly Proficiency, Flat Attack, and Flat Penetration. And for weapons, as expected from a crit-based unit in the Anomaly class, her signature weapon is the best option by a huge margin. Offering 24% crit rate, 50% crit damage, and up to 40% ice damage at phase 1, the amount of stats is completely insane and highly synergizes with all Miyabi's gameplay. The difference between other options is so huge that not using her signature weapon will lower your final damage by quite a lot. As you can see, the second best option is Electrolip Gloss at phase 5, and this requires a total of 5 battle passes to get it. And even so, it is still 25% worse than her signature weapon. The best free-to-play weapon is actually a Fusion Compiler, but even so, look at how huge the difference is. Not even attacker weapons can keep up with her signature because of all the extra effects it can give to Miyabi, which is not going to get access by using an attacker weapon. Now let's talk about her Mindscapes. Mindscape 1 increases even further your enhanced basic attack damage by ignoring 36% of the enemy defense. But the most interesting point is that it removes Frostburn from the enemy while also keeping the extra build-up. This allows Miyabi to apply Ice Fire to enemies once again and benefit from both Ice Fire and Mindscape 1 for a total of 100% bonus build-up. Not to mention that it also allows you to trigger Frostburn Break more easily. Mindscape 2 offers the highest DPS increase outside of Mindscape 6, of course. It increases your on-field potential while also increasing your Fallen Frost charges generation. This has a lot of value, especially against aggressive enemies, because her dodge counters jump straight to your basic attack 4, making it really fast to hit that basic attack 5 and generate more charges. It also gives a permanent 15% crit rate, making it even easier to get to 80% and even replace your crit rate disc with a crit damage disc. Mindscape 4 is a bit underwhelming for the amount of pulls it requires, mostly because the 30% damage it offers is additive with all other damage sources. The potential could be higher if you're triggering a lot of Frostburn breaks, but this would require going for Anomaly Mastery on Disc 6, and you still need Disorders or Shimotsuki to clear the Frostburn from the enemy. The extra decibel generation is interesting because it allows Miyabi to use her ultimate more often, but how this translates to actual damage can be hard to measure. Finally, Mindscape 6 as usual completely breaks the game by offering another 30% damage for your enhanced basic attack, while also letting you benefit from the damage of all charges leveled. All you need to do is hold down your basic attack button, and while you're charging all the way to level 3, you're going to use level 1 and level 2 slashes at the same time. So it requires no changes on your rotation, and the damage boost it's going to provide is really insane. When it comes to pulling Mindscapes, my personal recommendation is first getting her signature weapon before diving into Mindscape. It's a huge damage boost, and there's no reason to pull Mindscapes before getting at least a single copy of it. If you still have some pulls left, then going for Mindscape 1 or 2 is your best stop. It offers one of the highest damage increases, and after that, pretty much the only reason to go higher is if you're looking for her Mindscape 6 or to get her name card. Now let's talk about some team compositions. Since she requires only a faction or support member on the team, she's quite flexible and can easily fit on a lot of different teams. Miyabi Lucy Bernice is one of the easiest and strongest teams available for her. Lucy offers some attack, and both Bernice and Miyabi scales pretty well with it. Bernice is also really easy to play around and leaves a lot of field time for Miyabi to build Frost and regenerate energy. Not to mention that Bernice's ultimate also allows you to do a quick assist and use Miyabi's ultimate at the same time, dealing a lot of damage and huge fire and frost buildup on the enemy. Miyabi Lighter Lucy is also a strong pick because Lighter offers a lot of daze and also damage and resistance ignore buffs, stacking with Miyabi's own buffs and making all of her moves hit really hard. Bonus points if you're running his signature weapon, which also increases crit damage for Miyabi. Thanks to the increased build-up Miyabi offers for both Lighter and Lucy, triggering Disorder won't be that hard, but still requires some setup since their build-up is no match to Bernice. While Miyabi, Lighter, and Bernice might feel a strong pick, you lose additional ability, and while Lighter can easily compensate with some increased damage, the lack of charges and the ice resistance shred will hurt your rotation and your final damage, so I don't recommend going for it. For a more free-to-play approach, one of the best teams is Miyabi, Lycan, and Soukaku. Lycan and Soukaku both as ice units can help trigger Disorder, and Soukaku also offers 1000 attack for Miyabi. Not to mention all the extra bonus Lycan can provide for you, such as increased stun multiplier and all the resistance shred buffs that is going to stack with Miyabi's additional ability. Once again, using a stunner means you can use Lighter signatures to increase Miyabi's damage potential. Miyabi Yanagi Lucy is a really strong combo since both of them activate their additional ability, and Yanagi can trigger a lot of polarity disorders to generate charges for Miyabi. Lucy is not going to activate her ability, but this is somewhat fine since the only use for Lucy's additional ability is to increase her own damage. However, this is a high skill ceiling team because the amount of swaps required in order to use all of your charges can be quite demanding, so it's up to personal preference. If you plan to run this thing, it might be a good idea to use Anomaly Mastery on Miyabi to lower her field time and trigger Frostburn faster. This way, you can keep Yanagi generating energy and charges for Miyabi. You can replace Lucy with Caesar because it offers protection and higher attack and damage buffs. But the issue is that Caesar's attack buff is removed once you do a swap cancel. While this isn't a problem for Frostburn Break because you cannot trigger anomalies while don't control the unit, the damage of your enhanced basic attack is going to suffer quite a lot. So keep this in mind in case you rather run Caesar. While Rina is a solid choice to pair with Yanagi, the fact that she doesn't provide attack buffs from Miyabi can be quite harsh. It is still a valid choice since the damage potential Rina offers for Yanagi is the highest one in the game, but at this point, you're probably better playing Yanagi without Miyabi. As for Bangboos, if you're playing her with Yanagi, then going for Agent Gulliver is an easy pick. He does increased damage against shocked enemies, and can also inflict increased build-up in case they are under Frostburn. So he's going to help either with raw damage or shock build-up for a faster disorder. Outside of it, you can run any anomaly-related Bangboos such as Rocket Boo for Lucy Burnies or Shock Boo for Lycan Soukaku. But you can also run an energy regeneration Bangboo because it helps Miyabi with extra EX special casts, which generates charges for her enhanced basic attack. As you can see, there's a lot of flexibility when it comes to team building, and some Mindscapes can increase this flexibility even further, such as Mindscape 2, which increases Miyabi on-field potential, making her a solid sustained DPS. In any case, Miyabi is a good investment for any account, but as I said before, you need to get her signature weapon, otherwise you won't hit anywhere near as hard as you can. As of now, the only other Ice DPS unit in the game is Ellen, so if you like Miyabi, if you found her gameplay interesting, then go for it. Not to mention that the high flexibility of her additional ability requirements makes her way more future-proof than some other units. And that should be everything about Miyabi. Hope you enjoyed this guide, and if you did, remember to give it a like and subscribe for more Zenless Zone Zero content. As usual, thanks for watching, have a beautiful day, and I'll see you in my next video.